3. We're speaking today with William Shinkle. And Mr. Shinkle, if you would begin the interview for us and tell us a little bit about how you entered the service, the time period, and so forth.
Well, I was up at Ohio State, and in 1950, and I came home from for the Christmas break, and a friend of mine, who I went to high school with and graduated with, and I got together one day, and while we were at home, and we were both eligible for the draft and for the Korean conflict, and so we decided that what we would do, we would enlist. And when we decided that if we would go to the Air Force, why, maybe we could get in the Air Force. So we went to and tried to enlist in the Air Force, and both of us wore glasses. And the gentleman said we wouldn't be able to fly because of our glasses. Well, I mean, we felt, what do you need to be in the Air Force if you can't fly? So then we went to the Navy, and we got the same story from the Navy, that we wouldn't be able to get on board ship. So we decided, well, what the heck, we'll just go in the Army. I know they'll take us. So we did, and we enlisted, and we left and went to Fort Knox right after the first of the year. And from Fort Knox, we took a troop train from there to Fort Lewis, Washington State. And that's where I took my basic training and advanced basic. And I went at Fort Lewis, and I went into our advanced basic was with the 231st Engineer Combat Battalion. That was my basic training. And then we went in, after we got through our basic training, we went into advanced basing with the 1438 Bridge Company. That's what I was assigned to. And then from there, my high school buddy, he was transferred out, and we both figured we'd go to Korea. Well, I volunteered to go to Korea twice, and they wouldn't send me to Korea because I was pending orders to go to OCS right outside of Washington. Fort Belvoir was the engineer OCS, which is very similar. It's just a little West Point is what it is. And so they wouldn't send me to Korea. And so I waited, and finally I got my appointment to Fort Belvoir, and I went in, and there was 3 8 weeks of training. You have the first 8 weeks, and the second and the third. And so after the first 8 weeks, I was in a class that had a officer giving a lecture on the expendability of personnel and equipment. And at the end of the lecture, it ended up that he said that the personnel was easier to replace than equipment. In other words, you got to protect the equipment and not the personnel. So, and I didn't believe this. I thought an officer has to protect his personnel. And so I got an appointment with the base chaplain, and I went over and I talked to him, and I told him that this isn't what I can believe. I can't believe that this is the way you should run this. And he told me in no uncertain words that, well, if you don't believe in that, then you don't need to be an officer. And I said, well, then I won't be an officer. And I went back to my barracks and I wrote a letter of resignation and sent it in and resigned from OCS. So when my orders were posted on a bulletin board, why, I thought, sure, that this is my ticket to Korea. And so I went down and looked at the bulletin board, and here they're sending me to Europe, to the occupation troops in Europe. And so I thought, well, I guess I don't go to Korea, you know. And years after that, and why I think back and I think, man, I was really naive at that time because of the Korean War. I mean, 19 years old, you know, and you think, well, you're invincible, nothing's going to happen. But look at the troops that went to Korea that were not invincible, and I often think about that. So what I did is I left on a troop ship from Norfolk, Virginia, and went across to went up through the whole Bering Strait, and going up through there. I saw the White Cliffs of Dover and all of that in the, not the Bering Straits, it's the, can't think of the name of it.
The English Channel?
The English Channel, there you go. Went up through the English Channel, and then we got off and they sent me to Darmstadt for deployment to a unit. And when I got to Darmstadt, that was the headquarters of the 1st Infantry Division. And it was assigned to the 1st Engineers at Flak Kaserne in Kitzingen, Germany, as part of the occupation troops. And I was there for, well, the rest of my tour of duty. But I was asked about re-enlisting before I came back, and they wanted me, the battalion commander called me in and asked me to re-enlist, and he'd send me back to the United States for a month, and then I'd return to Germany and spend another 3 years. And he would increase, I was a corporal then, and he would increase me to a sergeant, staff sergeant. And I got to thinking about it, and while I was gone, right after I left in early 1952, my father was injured on the railroad. He worked for the railroad, and he was injured. A car door fell off of a boxcar and hit him and pinned him underneath it and broke his back, and he wasn't able to walk or anything else for quite a long time, and he had trouble with getting the railroad to help him out financially. In fact, he finally had to sue for it. So my mother went to work, and she, in order to support the family, was there, and so I thought, well, while I was in Europe, I was making a big amount of $135, I believe, a week or a month, and so I didn't have it. So I decided, well, I'll send a third of that home to my mother. So that's what I did. I had it automatically deducted, and they just sent a check to my mother. And so that's one thing I did while I was over there. And then I met some real great guys when I was over there too. I met a lot of people that from all over the country that were there, and we ran around a lot and went to well, we weren't allowed, as when we were the occupation troops, we were not allowed to in fact we weren't allowed to leave the caserne without our uniform, and we were not allowed to spend time or like overnight off the caserne. We had to come back, and if we wanted to go the next day, this was only on weekends, so everything that was just part of the way we were at that time. And so no civilian clothes I had. So anyway, I finally, after a certain period of time, I don't recall how much time there was now, before we were allowed to stay overnight in a area. Why I went to Frankfurt and stay overnight there, and I remember going into the hotel in Frankfurt. First time I was ever in Frankfurt, and I take that back, it was Nuremberg. I went in, and no, it was Frankfurt. Sorry. But I went in and to the hotel there, and I was by myself, and I went into the hotel, and I had my uniform on, and I went upstairs and to the room they had assigned me, or given to me, or rented anyway, for overnight. And I looked out the window. I was up pretty far in the hotel. I looked out the window and looked down, and there was construction work going down below. And I looked down there and I thought, boy, that's nice. They're putting an addition on the hotel. So I went downstairs to go out to get something to eat, and a good German beer. And so when I passed the counter there, well, I asked him, I said, are you putting an addition on? And the guy said, no, there is a dead bomb down there and they're trying to get it out of there. And I said, here's my key, I'll find somebody else, someplace else to stay. And that's what they were doing. And but it wasn't an American bomb or British, I don't know, that had gone through, and it was a dud, and so it didn't explode. So they're down there trying to get it out, and I said, I don't want to stay in this hotel. So I found another place, but that was some of the experience I had when I was there, and I spent some time in Holland. I went to Amsterdam, And I spent 2 furloughs in Amsterdam, and I had a great time in Amsterdam, and their cheese, and I went back over there in 2000, and well, last year we went back, or 2000, I'm sorry, to see the Passion Play. And so when we were over there, my sister and wife were with me, and my brother-in-law, so we went around and we toured all of Germany and Holland. And I showed them the places I went and everything, and it was a great experience. But I can still remember some of the things that went on when I was over there. And I met a German family, and the father had served in the First World War, and the 3 daughters and a son were there, and there was one daughter that was about 23 years old, and I was like 19, and then the 2 younger girls were, I believe, around 12 or 13, and but the mother, we called the Bach, it was the Bach family, B-A-C-H, and Moody Bach and I, and the friend that I was with in the division, went we'd go out there. I bought a motorcycle. After the last year I was over there, I bought a motorcycle, a German motorcycle, an old one. and so we'd ride out there on the motorcycle, and then she would cook German food for us, you know, and the father made his own beer, and it was good.
Now, how did you get acquainted with that family?
We were being in a bridge, I was in the bridge company, or bridge platoon in the engineers, and we were bridging, I drove a truck that carried 24 feet of floating bridge, the 2 pontoons, and then all the hardware that goes on top of the trucks and tanks to go across. And we would bridge or go out on maneuvers and just set the bridge up across the river. And so we were out there, and the families from this little town, Schwarzenau, would come over, and they'd watch us. And so the Moody Bach was Moody's Mother Bach would brought something over and was giving it to the drivers to eat, you know, what we called kuchen. And so that's how I got to know her. And so we went out there and visited them, and she would cook, and they could not get cigarettes, and we were getting cigarettes for 10 cents a package, but we had to buy, we couldn't buy the pack, we had to buy a carton from the PX, and that was $1. And some of the troops were out selling them for $10 just to get extra money. And I never did that. But, and I wouldn't take and give them cigarettes even when I was out there. They couldn't get coffee either. And so we could get coffee, what they called Lion's coffee, which was an English coffee in the PX. And so I would take as not a pound, it was a little over a pound, or I don't know how many liters or whatever, but it was a little over that. And I would take that out and give it to him, and then she would make coffee for us, and then we'd have the kuchen, which is a sweet pie like, and then she'd cook for us, and she was a great cook. And supper or whatever, you know, and I'd take certain things out for her, and but they treated us really, really great. The buddy I took out there, his name was Don Seitzinger, and I've been in contact with him about a year ago, and he's over in Illinois, and I haven't been able to get over to see him yet, but I found him on the web. But we bridged that. We bridged the Mine River twice out there in the same place on maneuvers, and then we went and we bridged on some bigger maneuvers. We bridged the Rhine River, and we did that twice. And we were in the Black Forest on maneuvers. We were just all over, and of course, when I was over there, there was the French sector and the American sector and the Russian sector and so forth, and British sector, whatever. And so we were, in order to get to Berlin, you had to fly in. You couldn't even drive in. But so I never went to Berlin, and. But one thing that really aggravated me is we had a lot of guys that went to Paris. And when we had to wear our uniforms, of course, they knew we were American soldiers. And so if you go in a store to buy something, why the price would double or triple because we were American soldiers. And these guys come back and he said, man, you have to have a lot of money to go to France, to Paris. And I never went. I thought, no, and I still hold that against them. After all we did for the French, and then they treated the American soldiers like they did. So, and I'm a real history buff, and I belong to the Society of the First Division, which is a national society. And the First Infantry Division is the oldest division and the first division.
Very well known.
Yes. And they landed, of course, at Normandy. And I am a very avid I have very good feelings for the First Infantry Division,
Yeah.
of what they went
Have you
through.
been able to keep up with members? I know you said you contacted the one fellow.
Yes, yes, I have, there's, I think there's 3 different ones I've been able to contact. Some of them, this has been a long time ago, but some of them, I'm sure have passed away. But,
We have a lot of veterans who are active in reunions.
yes,
with their folks.
right, and I haven't been to one of our reunions. We have a reunion every year also, but they have been like in, they haven't been anywhere close. They've been fairly far away, but I am going to go to one of them. And I just joined the reunion, or the society, I think about 5 years ago. And so...
What encouraged you to do that?
Oh, I don't know. I have, off of the History Channel, I'm a history buff, and off the History Channel, they had the films of the First Division landing at Normandy. And I got that. And then I got when the society started, why they sent a letter to me asking me if I wanted to join. And that I said yes, and that's where this cap came from. And I got the film that was on the History Channel. They had that on there, and they have other memorabilia also, patches and that sort of thing. And I've got a lot of that. I have the cap and the badge that goes on there, and some of that's basically that my mother threw my uniform away when after 4 or 5 years, after I was back, she asked me if I wanted. I said no, I don't need it, but I wish I'd have kept it now. I have the belt, and the belt is about that much too short. So, but I'm very proud of what we did. And when I came home, of course, I've got occupation mustering out pay of $300, and then I got paid occupational duty, hazardous duty over there when I was over there, and I also got a Ohio Korean conflict compensation because I was in during the Korean War, and so it was a real experience. I really was impressed with everything that was going on over there.
Can you talk a little bit about how the environment was there in Europe during the occupation time? Most people were receptive to the Americans.
Yes, I'm sure that I never found anybody that really gave me a hard time. There might have been a few instances where I was riding on the train, I had my uniform on, and I sat down one time, and this German individual didn't want to sit next to an American soldier, and so he got up and moved. Instances like that, but I did not really see anything that was really harmful.
And then, as far as your day-to-day activities, I know you said you went out on maneuvers quite a bit.
Yes.
And then, what were your responsibilities day-to-day?
Well, we would go out and we'd work on our equipment, and we'd just do regular, normal, day-to-day jobs that we had to do, primarily at the motor pool, and we'd practice with our equipment at the motor pool rather than in the setting the bridge up. Those were maneuvers with the rest of the division, and sometimes the 3rd Armored was down at Harvey Barracks when I was there. That was down in just right outside of Kitzigan, and it was a 3rd Armored Division, and we would go up, and we would take training on combat engineers. They are the ones that goes out and probe for mines and that sort of thing, and we take and go to this one can't think of the name of it now, this one area where the tanks would go on maneuvers, and then they'd have dummy minefields out there, and we'd have to go find the dummy mines. And that was a lot of work. Thank goodness they were dummies. But, and then if we were called out for infantry work, we were in an infantry regiment, and we also could be called in as infantry troops. And so if we were called out, well, they want us to be able to ride on the tanks and know how to get on and off the tank, you know, and that sort of thing. So we went on maneuvers for that also.
Were you mainly there just to kind of control still the post-war atmosphere?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
We had munitions there, and when we were on guard duty, we had guard duty all over the caserne. And at the munitions depot was pretty far away from our concern, but it was in the same concern. It was pretty far away from the barracks, and these were Flat Caserne was a German barracks area for German troops during the war, and we had the ammo depot down at the one end, away from all those barracks, and so we had posted guards at the depot, and we would walk tours, a guard duty, at the depot with loaded weapons. And so this one time, why I wasn't on duty, but we heard bang, bang, and the platoon sergeant and platoon lieutenant came out, and they went down to where they thought the shots were, and to see what was going on. And here the guard on duty was down there, and he said, "Oh, I had some shots, and he was shooting around the, yeah." And I don't know whether it was a rabbit he was shooting at or what, but needless to say, he didn't go on guard duty down there anymore. I don't know whether they court-martialed him or what, because you weren't supposed to do that. I mean, really, I mean, it didn't take much to tell you not to do that, but anyhow.
Now, when you entered, you said you enlisted with your friend. Were you the only person in your family in the service at that time?
I was the only person that was in the service, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you find out what happened to your friend that you entered with?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got home at about the same time.
Where did he end up going?
He spent his whole time, when he left, he went to San Francisco, and left San Francisco, and he thought he was going to Korea, and he ended up on Okinawa, and he spent his entire year or 2 years on Okinawa. And I asked him, I said, well, I said, were there any girls there? He says, yeah, one behind every tree.
So he was doing a similar occupation?
Yes, right. And so he was lucky too. But and in fact, he is back in San Francisco now, and he is doing work at Stanford University. He teaches there. He's got his doctorate or whatever, and he teaches a lot in computer sciences and that sort of thing.
And how did your family accept that when you told them you were going to enlist?
I didn't tell them until after we enlisted.
Okay.
Yes, because they didn't accept it. I mean, they said, "What did you do something like that for?" You know, and I had nobody. There was nobody in my family that was ever in the service. They were all too old for World War II, and my father, I was going through some things of my mother's, and I came across this postcard, and I looked at it, I thought, what is this? And here it was a notice to my father to report to the draft board for World War I, but he was never drafted. And he was too old for World War I, or it was over before he got drafted. And but he came close, but I had no other relatives that were in World War II or in Korea. Family was, and I was the only one.
And you were a single young man when
Oh
you
yeah,
entered the service?
yes.
And
No, I didn't get married till after I was 28 years old.
Did you continue with your college when you came back?
Yes, I went back up to Ohio State in the College of Business this time, and the first time I was in College of Agriculture. I wanted to be a farmer, and I was going to be a dairy farmer. I didn't have any sense then either. So when I got back, I went back up to Ohio State and got into College of Business. And I didn't graduate because, again, I was running out of money. But the service helped me go to college. They paid me, I think, $100 a month in order to go to school. And the money I sent home to my mother. I got home, and my father was up and around. He could get up and around a little better, but I went out. I said, "Mom," I says, "I am going out to buy a car." I never had a car before, and so when I got home, I wanted some transportation, and cars where I didn't have any money, and so cars were. I bought a used car, and but when I told my mother I was going to buy a car, she says, "Well, I got something for you." And here she had put all the money I'd sent home in a bank. She hadn't used it. She saved it for me, and when I got home, she gave it to me, and that went for my automobile.
Oh, wonderful.
And so I was very pleased with that. But my father, he never did get over his accident. In fact, he was in a nursing home for 10 years. And but they both lived to 92, so and I'm only 71. So, but no, I'm glad I went in. Very proud of
What
them.
benefit did you feel you gained from your time in the service?
I think they taught me how to face the future and what to do, and gave me confidence on what I could do. If I tried something and it didn't work right then, why, okay, let's try it again. And when I was in the College of Business, I said, when I was up at Ohio State. When I come out of Ohio State, I went to work for a company in the electronics business. And I worked for him for 2.5 years, and then I went off on my own and I started my own electrical business. And that was I built that, I started it in my basement in Kettering, and then I moved it into a storeroom like, and then we built our own, I got some partners and we built our own building. And after, I think I had it for 5 years, I sold it to a company, Aero Electronics out of New York City. It's traded on a stock exchange. They wanted a business. I did government business, and with the Gentile Air Force Base, and packaging is what it was. And I did business with them, and they wanted an outlet from New York, so they bought our company. And I used that money to buy the farm that I am on now, and that started me farming.
How long have you been doing that?
I started farming back in 69, I believe it was. I moved out to Waynesville, over on Bellbrook Road, and I wanted to do a little bit of farming because my grandfather always farmed, but he only had horses, and that's the way he farmed. But then I bought the place I'm on now, on O'Neill Road, and my son came in. I worked at the mill, and because of my business experience, I was hired down there to run it, and that was agri-urban. And I ran it for 3 years, and my son came in one day and told me that a friend of ours that I had known since I started running a mill wanted us to farm their land, because the friend had passed away, but his wife still maintained, they had about 300 acres, still maintained it, and she wanted us to farm it for her. So I says, okay. I says, I'll just quit here and we'll go into farming. And that's how I got started farming full time. And again, why I think the service helped me in deciding, I mean, gave me the attitude of I can do it. And no, I do not regret any bit of the time I served in the service. And sometimes I think, well, maybe I should have taken that extended leave and then come back, because I was good at what I did, and I was never reprimanded for anything that I had done, you know. But I was really pleased with it.
Is there anything that we've not discussed that you'd like to bring up?
Oh, when I when I went back in 2000, the church, as I mentioned before, my sister lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and the church that she belongs to got a group together that wanted to go to see the Passion Play at Oberammergau. Was it Oberammergau? Yeah, I think that's where it is.
Right.
Yeah. And so she called me one day and she says, would you like to go to Europe? And I said, what for? She says, well, we're going over to see the Passion Play. And she said, would you like to see that? And I says, that's in Germany? And she said, yes. And I says, what do you think? And she said, yes, I think you would like to go. And I says, I sure would. And so we went to Atlanta. My wife and I, we went down there and we flew from Atlanta to Amsterdam. That's where we landed. And we toured Amsterdam and Holland while we were there. And I showed them all the place. We went out to the dikes and the Zuider Zee, which was salt water. When I was there, they had started building a dam across it. Now there's a road goes across the open end into the Arctic Ocean, I think it was. But now that's all fresh water. And we took tours on the canals and everything, and we went to the place that Anne Frank, went to her memorial, and we did a lot of things. And I'd been to Anne Frank's memorial when I was over there, but we did a lot of things there that it wasn't like it was when I was there. The cheese wasn't quite like it. But we left there, and then we went to Frankfurt, and we didn't stay in the hotel there. The same
Was
hotel.
it still standing?
I didn't even go look. But we the rest of the crew, there was just the four of us that went to Amsterdam because we wanted to fly into Amsterdam. We went 3 days earlier than they did. And the other crew flew to Paris and spent 3 or 4 days in Paris, which I wouldn't go to. I said, no, I said, we'll go someplace else. I'm not going to France. And so we met them in Frankfurt, and then we started touring Germany again, and we rented vans. We had vans rented, and so when they did some touring on their way, but I took off one time when they were going up to see one of the German concentration camps, and I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go back to some of the places that was there. So we went down to can't think of the name, Kitzingen, and went up to Flat Lucerne, and it was still there, and the 1st Division Signal Corps was still there, but the engineers weren't there. I don't know where they were, but there were a lot of NATO troops there also. And so when we left there, we went down to Kitzingen and drove around Kitzingen, and I showed them around there. We ate lunch there and everything. And so I said, well, let's see if we can find Schwarzenau. And things have changed quite a bit since I was there. So we went around and we did find him. We found Schwarzenau, and I went in. It had changed a lot since I was there. The cemetery, I knew where it was, this little road, and I saw the graves of the Bachs, Moody, and it didn't have Moody Bach on there, but I saw their graves, and I thought, I wonder if anybody has left here. So there was a little bar that was there, and so I went into the bar and I asked the bartender if there were any Bachs in the area. And my German came back real good too. I was fluent. Everybody wanted me to talk for him, you know. So I asked this guy in German if any of the Bach family was still there. And he said, yeah, yeah. And he motioned for me to follow him, and he went out there. And we went out the door, and there was a couple, about 3 doors down. While he pointed to the door, he said, right there. So I went down and I knocked on the door, and this older gray-haired woman came to the door, and I said, "Are you a Bach?" And she said, "Yeah, yeah." And I says, "My Namen is Paul Shinkle." They always called me Paul. Well, it was William Paul. And she looked at me and I'm like, so? And then all of a sudden, while her eyes got real big, she says, "Powell and Donald?" And Donald Seisinger, because he's the one. And I said, yes. And I went in and I talked to her for a while. And then I came out, and Patty and my wife and my sister and brother-in-law were there, and so we went out, and I got a picture of, her name was Clotilda. I got a picture of Clotilda, and with the rest of the family, you know.
Now, was she one of the children?
She was the oldest.
Okay.
And I asked her when I was in the house, I said, well, where's Valentina, was one of the younger girls. And she said, oh, she's in New Jersey. So I said, oh, okay. And I said, Agnes was the other one. And and I said, well, what about Agnes? Is she around? He says, she's in Akron, Ohio. I go, oh, she gave me their numbers and telephone numbers. And apparently she gave me the wrong ones, and she didn't tell me what their last names were. So I tried to call both of them, and I haven't been able to get a hold of them. So I'm going to see if I can find something more out about them. But apparently they married GIs when they were over there, and came back to the United States. But it was a great trip, and the Passion Play was great. And when we toured all the little towns, and I am, being from Cincinnati, I am an avid beer drinker. And I don't go out to bars and drink, but I like good beer. And I was taught when I was over there in Germany what good beer was. And so we'd always have, my brother-in-law and I would always have, whenever we had supper or lunch, we'd always have a beer with it. And the dark beer and all kinds of, they have various kinds of beers, and delicious. And my wife even, who hates beer, even drank a few, you know. And but it was great. We really had a great time. The people were great to us, and we did a lot, as I say, a lot of sightseeing, and we even went down to Edenkoven, not Edenkoven, yeah, Edenkoven, where the first Shinkle came to the United States. He was, him and his sons and wife came to the United States in 1742. They spelt the name S-C-H-E-N-K-E-L, and they landed in Philadelphia, and the sons fought with the Americans in the Revolution. And I found all three of their graves. They after that they came across the Pennsylvania, got on a barge or built a barge and floated down the Ohio River to Adams County. They got off there and came up in Ohio, came up into Brown County and Claremont County, and I followed them all the way, and I found their graves, all three of their graves, and they had these little plaques on their grave they stick in the ground for the Revolutionary War, and I go down and put a flag on their graves.
And is that in Brown County or?
That's, yes. And it's on Shinkle Ridge. But it's S-H-I-N-K-L-E
Yeah.
because when they landed in the United States, they changed the name. The boys did change the name to S-H-I-N-K-L-E instead of, and not the S-C-H. But, and I've gone even farther back. I went to there where Philip Carl Shinkle was the father. Philip Carl and I went back his ancestors to Switzerland. They were on the Swiss-German border, and they were German though, and they came down, and I followed their trail all the way back up to they went to Schwarzenau. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting you were able to do that.
Oh yes, as I say, I'm a history and a genealogy buff, and I really enjoyed the trip, and everything really went well for us. But I don't know, I'd like to go back, but my wife, she doesn't want to go back. There's some things I didn't get to see while I was over there.
Yeah. Sounds like you got a lot in there.
Oh yes, oh absolutely. It's not major that I go back, but I was asked to go back. Oh, the people that ran the tour that we took in 2000, they were German. In fact, the guide, he was 81 years old, and 82. He was 82 years old, and he fought in World War II. And but he was a guide that took us on the tour. Him and his wife took us on the tour, and she even we met her sister, who was over there, who lived over there, you know, and but he was fluent in German, and she was too. She did a lot of the interpreting for us, but what I couldn't do.
Now,
But,
did you just pick your German up from being in Germany? Or?
yeah,
Okay.
yes. It was something I did real well with it. And being there for 2 years, why, after a while, but over the years, I hadn't used it. You had to use it.
Yeah.
But when I got back over there and started using it again, when I came back, people wanted me to order all their food. We go to dinner and lunch, and they say, well, what is this? And I'd look at it, and I don't read German well, but I would look at it, and if I could tell them what it was, and some of the waitresses or waiters didn't speak English, and I would order, try to tell them what they wanted, a schnitzel and all the other good eating things over there, and so finally I told them, I said, look, I don't want to order for you. I says, because it may not be what I think it is, and you may not like it. and I don't want to be responsible for that. But they were very good. Everybody, we all got along real well. But they came back earlier than we did, and we stayed on and went down to Switzerland. And but it was a great tour, and I got to see some of the places when I was over there, and some of the people that I met when I was over there, and it was just a great experience.
Well, unless you have anything else to add, do you have anything else that you would like to add before we close? I think we're coming to the end of our tape.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Yeah, we are.
Thank you very much
Oh,
for coming in.
very good. Thank you.
Let me turn this off, if I can figure it out.